Hi, I'm Grace from Tangled Webs Weaving, and I would like to do a project for you guys from start to finish. So this will be a multi-part YouTube video, and the first part will be kind of planning it out and warping it on my warping board here, and then the second part will be warping my loom and threading it, and then we'll get to weaving. And then the last part will be finishing. So we'll go from start to finish. The first part is planning it. So I have a pattern here for some Huck Lace Napkins. The finished dimensions are, for this pattern as written, are 4 napkins that are 17 by 17, I believe, 17 and a half maybe. I want more than 4 napkins. I want 8 napkins. So we need to do a little math. And so I just thought I'd go through that with you real quick. The pattern calls for 3.5 yards of warp. And that allows a 29 inches for loom waist and 9 inches for take up. So 3.5 yards minus the loom waist is 97 inches, and then it says 9 inches for take up, so I am going to assume that's not little over 9% for take up. So if I want to do 8 napkins, I should allow for roughly 10% take up, or 18 inches. So what I'm going to do is, typically I err on the side of more is better. So we have 3.5 yards times 36 is 126 inches, minus my 29 inch loom waist, which is about accurate for my loom. So the loom waist doesn't change regardless of how many items you are weaving. It's going to be the same. So that's 97 inches. I am going to double that because I want 8 napkins, or double what I have. So that is, 97 times 2 is 194 inches. Now I'm going to add back the loom waist, the 29 inches. That gives me 223 inches, which is 6.19 yards. So I'm going to put on 6.25 yards at least. So I am going to write that down, 6.25 yards. All right. So now I go to my warping board, and I have a couple strings on here. I know this string in particular, the way it's warped is at 5.5 yards. So I need to measure more than that. So I need to find out how my warping string, and hopefully my warping string is long enough for 6.25 yards. So I have a super long tape measure here. So I'm just going to take this. I know this loop is 5.5 yards. Let's see if I have any extra length here. I don't think that's going to be long enough, but let's see. 5.5, 6. Oh, what do you know? It is a little over 6.25 yards, so I'm just going to go with that because it's easy. And that way I got a little extra to play with, to keep a sample. I always like to weave 2 or 3 inches and then really look at it before I continue weaving the whole thing. Take a picture of it. It catches errors. You would not believe how many errors you can find if you take a photo of your weaving and then look at the photo. especially if you switch it to black and white. It's the wonderful thing about the digital age. We can take photos right away and look at them. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off because I know that the path is not going to be correct. All right, so I like to warp. I make 2 crosses in my warp just because of the way my loom, you put the warp onto the loom. So what I like to do is put my main cross at the bottom and have another cross here at the top, and then I pull my warp off. I warp from the bottom to the top, and I chain my warp from the bottom to the top, and then I have my loop that goes over my bar on the back of my loom, my warp bar. I have all the loops on that bar, so it's just the way I do it. Okay, so I know that this string is the full 6 yards, 6¼ yards. So we're gonna just kind of do some experimenting here. And that looks pretty good right there. So I'm gonna really stretch it. Okay. So I am going to tilt the camera down here a little bit so that you can see the bottom of my warping board. Okay, so I wanted to come in here real close so that you could see exactly my path. So I've got 2 strings on here because I have done a shorter warp before. So it just goes back and forth, and it's this thicker blue string. Goes back and forth almost over every warping peg. And then I jump down to this warping peg. So I skip from here to here. And then I come down along here. And when I put the warp on, I always like to have at least 3 warping pegs to create my cross on. So I just wanted to show you that up close. Okay, so this particular warp calls for, we're using a white 10-2 cotton and a marine 10-2 cotton. So I'm going to pull those out, and the first 4 threads are going to be marine, and that's the blue here, and then the rest of the warp, there are, how many threads? 488 ends. So the next 480 ends are going to be 1 blue and 1 white. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put my yarn down here on the floor. I'll wrap this. And I am going to be warping 2 at a time, since we're doing 1 blue and 1 white. Let's see if I can find the end here. Okay. So, since the first 4 are the marine, the blue, I just make a slip knot. I put it on the bottom, since I work from the bottom up, and I'm going to run 4 of those. So here I have my cross at the top, and when we get down here at the bottom, you'll see that I have a cross down at the bottom. Okay. And when you're warping, especially the first couple of passes, just make sure that you are, and actually I'm going to redo that one because I don't like the way this crosses. I crossed up over there. So I need to do it like this. Alright, I just like to make a nice straight shot at it. Alright, we'll go back up. And especially the first couple times, I was starting to say that you do it, just make sure that you are paying attention to where your path is, and then also how you're making your crosses at each end. Alright, so I've got the 4 blue. Now I'm going to skip over here just to kind of tie this off for a minute while I grab my white. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make a slip knot. This end down here is the end that will go to the cloth beam. So it's going to get tied onto the apron rod, and so these slip knots are nice because you can just pull them out. You don't have to worry about a knot in there and trying to undo it, especially with this fine 10-2 cotton. Alright, so I'm going to slip this white over, undo the blue, retension it. Now, I'm hoping that I can zoom in here a little bit. So I wanted to show you how I am holding the thread. The way it's going to go onto the warping board is I've got the 4 blue on here already. So then the next thread would be white and then a blue. So I want to make sure that I always have the white towards the wall, towards the warping board, and the blue towards me. That way I'll keep the 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Now I'm always going to keep my right hand holding the 2 threads together, and I'm going to use my left hand to help guide it around all of the posts. You don't want to twist as you're going around your warping board. Always stays flat. So we're going to come over here, come under. So 2 threads create your cross. That's fine. You can have the 2 threads in there. We're going to go slow the first time around. I'm always going to keep my hand flat, not twisting those threads. When I get to the cross up here, I'm going to go over, through my cross, around the top, or around the bottom, over the top, back through, down through my cross and over. I've still got that white closest. Okay. So I paused the video because I started thinking and I wanted to double check the length of my warp here. Just didn't want to run short. So I did pull out the tape measure, measured the entire path, and it is more than 6 1/4 yards. So I'm happy. Anyways, all right. So this cross is wrong. All right, there we go. All right, so we're just going to continue on here. I won't be able to get all of my warp in one go. I will have to chain this off, and I'll probably have to do 3 bouts of this. I'll just kind of see where I end up. Some people have lost my train of thought. Anyways, we'll see how it goes. Notice I'm continuing to keep this hand is guiding the 2 threads. This hand is going around the warping pegs. I also make sure to keep the yarn that's on the floor in the same spot, and the threads coming up from the floor don't tangle around each other, or you'll get twists in the 2 yarns and it will cause problems. It'll slow your process down. So I'm going to continue on here. You don't need to see me go around and around the board several times for the next couple hours. So I will come back when I'm ready to take this off the warping board, and you can see how that process works. So we'll see you in a bit. We're back, and I haven't maxed out the warping board pegs, but there's 240 repeats of the blue white in this. Divide that by 4, it's 60. If you divide it by 3, it's 80. This is 60 repeats on here right now, and I don't really think I'm comfortable getting 80 on there. So we'll just go ahead and get this off, and we'll do 4 repeats instead of 3. So what I don't use choke ties. I chain my warps. I used to use choke ties, and I watched the Jane Stafford School of Weaving, and she convinced me that chaining is better, and so I've been trying that, and it works great. My warps don't get twisted or tangled. A warp under tension is a warp controlled. That's what I believe that she says. Anyways, I use these chip clips. I believe they are called IKEA chip clips. I just got them off Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive. I got, I don't know, a couple dozen of them, different sizes. They are great for keeping your warp under control. They don't let the threads slip out. So I put one of these on each leg of the cross. So we're just going to do that. Be sure not to get the string that is your guide in there, because then you're going to have to figure out how to get that out of your clips. Alright, so there's the one cross. Do this cross down here. And just going to pull this out a little bit so I can get to it. Not get my guide string in there. There we go. I always try and have the clips facing the same way, even though sometimes it's a little challenging getting them in there. That way I always know which way is the right way, especially with this particular one, because it's got the 4 blue starting it. And then if you have a pattern in there, you can label each warp bout and figure out, keep them straight so that you don't get them mixed up. Okay, so then this is where it goes on to the warp rod. So I'm going to just tie that one off just to be certain. This one isn't as critical down here because that is what gets threaded through the heddles. Alright, so because I want to, my loom warps best front to back, and so I want to have this end at the end of my chain, and that is why I do it backwards from a lot of people. Alright, so I've got this ready to go, and sometimes if this last thread isn't, if it's at the very end, it could slip a little bit, so I always like to overlap it with other threads and make sure that it's clipped in there real tight. So I'm gonna cut that off, set that to the side, and then always keep your warp under tension. Jane Stafford is better at it than I am, but we will do our best. Okay, so I am going to start chaining from here. So I'm going to grab that and pull this off. It's a little tight. Keep it under tension. I don't worry too much about it twisting. I try and kind of reverse the twist at each warping peg, but it's going to get twisted, and you just deal with that when you're warping. It's not a big deal. Get up here to the last peg, We're going to tighten that one up real good. And then I'm going to put one of these clips through the loop just so that it can't undo itself. And then we take that one off. And there's our first warp chain. So, I'll go put this near my loom. And typically I put them, kind of drape them over the loom in the order that they go. And if I'm not going to warp right away, I will actually take one of these end strings and I'll put a little, I'll write what number in the warp order that it is, and I will put that on the warp so that later when I come back to it, I know which number in the sequence it goes. This one, it doesn't matter too much. I can see that it's got the 2 blue, or the 4 blue on the end, and so I know that it goes on one of the ends. So that's it for this segment. Once I get 3 more of these done, I will start warping my loom. So thanks. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like watching my videos, please subscribe down below. Thank you.